Hi, and good day, everyone. This is Launch Your Career, and this is our second time zone that we are featuring Launch Your Career Data Analyst, featuring Ashley. And so this is going to be a pre-record. We were able to record this earlier today. And so Ashley and I will both be available in the live chat window to answer any more detailed questions that you have. So enjoy it, and looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you. Good day, everyone. This is Justin, and it is time to launch your career. This is our show in the Microsoft Reactor, where we talk about a day in the life of many different job roles here in tech. In fact, over this series, we're going to explore, I think, 24 different ones. And today is our second episode focused on data analyst, or you could also think of it as an analytics manager or insights strategist, or many different job roles that are really focused on analyzing data, unlocking insight, and then being able to communicate those results. So I have an awesome guest with me today. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, Ashley, you and I work together in the Microsoft Reactors. In fact, you're one of those people that really helps us all understand how we can make this community better for people. And that's something I really value as a person who has a chance to think about programming and think about how we teach and how we share and things like that. So very much looking forward to that. Well, before we get into it, just a reminder to all of you out there, we do have a Microsoft Reactor Code of Conduct. Of course, be nice, be polite, be respectful for other people, but most importantly, please share your input. We have a great chat window across our different platforms and things like that. And so Ashley and I will be answering questions in that. And if you don't get your question answered in this particular segment, we air another version of this later in the day where we are airing the pre-record, but then we're available just exclusively to do live chat Q&A. So you can check that out or catch out the recording on that as well. All right, and then finally, if you got a chance to see our episode last week, we have a Cloud Skills Challenge. Take the Launch Your Career Cloud Skills Challenge. You can see the URL there. Be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning about different job roles and things like that. So with that, Ashley, let's get to know you a little bit better as our guest. So first of all, tell us a little bit more about what you do in the Microsoft Reactor community.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm the analytics manager for the team, and I support the Reactor program in reporting. So that means reporting and insights on business metrics, building dashboards and reports. But at a fundamental level, what I'm trying to do is help the team understand through data what content works. So what are the different topics that are resonating in different geographies, and what are the delivery methods that work, live, on demand, even length of content. So It's just a lot of kind of taking all of the data that we get in about our programming and distilling it into insights that the team can use, and the team uses that to shape the program. So they make changes like what's the best content for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Ashley, one of the things I really have appreciated about you and continue to is that this Microsoft Reactor business, we used to be a set of buildings, physical locations around the world. And as the pandemic happened, not only did we have those buildings, but we also created a digital form of advocacy, which is what we have here with this live stream and things like that. And I really think you helped us make that transition in our own business to be able to reach people more inclusively, to welcome people from all around the world. And so while we still have the Reactor locations around the world, we're also available on YouTube and Twitch and LinkedIn and other places like that. So I really appreciate you about that because the data is what helped us kind of understand what we want to cover and focus on and think about channels and things like that. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you.
You bet. You bet. So I always try to think about what inspires you. So what inspired you in a career focusing on data, and how did you get here?
Yeah. So I don't know that I really planned for a career as a data analyst. at least starting out. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. In undergrad, I studied political science and Russian studies. So, nothing aligned to tech or, data analysis at all. But after school, after college, I got a job at an advertising agency, and I was doing a bunch of different things like operations and IT. But one of the things I started working on as well was email marketing. So for our client, we were understanding, their internal contacts, which ones to target for specific campaigns. And of all the things I was doing there, that was for me the most interesting. I felt like it was providing the most value. It was really challenging. It was learning, new skill sets. I barely even knew Excel at the time, and so it was just really cool. A cool space, and I knew I wanted to be in it. But I also knew that I didn't really have much of any type of like business background or business acumen. So a lot of the things that I was, working with the client on, I didn't fully understand. And so for that reason, I decided to go to business school, because I was like, I didn't do anything like that in undergrad. By no means do you need to go to business school to become a data analyst. But for me, it was something that I felt like I wanted to do. And so, yeah, it was a little scary, but it ended up being a great move. After business school, I landed a job at Microsoft, and I've kind of been in the data and analytics space ever since then, in all different teams. I've been the one of many analysts in a team, and now I'm the only analyst on the team. So it's been great. No specific moment, but I would say like what keeps me in this space is it's challenging and it's always changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was drawn to data analysis and analytics management as well. It was actually the first job that I got at Microsoft as well, and I came from a background, as I've told our community before. I didn't come from a computer science background. I actually studied political science, economics, and a little bit of business and things like that. And I mentioned on the last episode, in my internship, I ended up picking up web development. It was a finance internship, but I learned really quickly that I loved technology, and web development was that. But the job I actually got from Microsoft that I started in was a marketing analytics manager. And it was one of those things where I learned in the role how to think about data and to put data in context. And one of the most important elements is communicating that, right? It doesn't matter unless the people that you're trying to reach make decisions or change their behavior as a result of the data that you're sharing and the insight that you're providing as well. But I find that magical. It's interesting, and furthermore, it is always changing. When I started as an analytics manager, there was no Power BI. Excel had 32,768 rows. It wasn't the 1 million and change that is now. So you couldn't put a large data set into Excel. You had to use like Access or SQL, of course, or things like that. And so a lot has changed. In fact, manually, we would have to build dashboards using custom web code. We didn't have the drag and drop features of Power BI and things like that. As well, except that makes things a lot easier nowadays, because then you can focus on the insight and the value versus just how cool the dashboard looks and things like that, as well, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that I think a lot of learners out there who are considering a role in this, at least a common question that gets asked me is like, how technical is being an analytics manager? And how do you think about your role from the sort of the technical side and the product specific side to the more like business and decision driven side and such?
Yeah, I think it can be extremely technical. I would say I'm kind of middle of the road. But where I think a data analyst is going to provide the most value is being able to work between those two spaces. So being able to work with the business stakeholder and understand their needs and truly understand their business, understand what it is that they're trying to do fundamentally so that they can build the right solutions, being data visualizations and reports. you do need to also be able to translate that to a technical team. So it's typically, a data engineering team, or it's maybe some more technical analysts who are building up the reports. And you need to be familiar with data as well. I think you certainly want to be good with Excel. You probably want to get some fundamental SQL skills as well. So there's some level of technical capability that you'll need. But I think where the value lies is really being that translator between the two, two different sides.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that what makes a role in data analysis so interesting is that you're neither fully in the technical realm, nor are you fully in the business realm. You're still delivering a product and actionable insight in that. But I kind of think those roles are interesting. I mean, they're the sort of thing you stay with in your career because you're not just doing one thing over and over again. In fact, that role is always changing, and indeed, data analysis has changed dramatically in recent years. And we're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about AI automation and some interesting, cool stuff there. What you think about that? But before we go to that, I also wanted to kind of share with the audience out there, data analyst at a glance. I tried this last week on my show. Share your feedback if you think this is a good slide or good information and things like that. But I went on LinkedIn in the Career Explorer and tried to look up all the different variations of data analyst. And it turns out that there are a lot of variations in data, which kind of makes sense. You can be an analytics manager, an insights manager. You can get into consulting in business intelligence and really focus on the product and what you do for a client. And obviously this role has incredible career progression. You can become a director of analytics and director of insights and things like that as well. And so there's lots and lots of variation, I think, in the data analyst role. Second of all, the amount of jobs on LinkedIn is pretty impressive. Just in the past month in the United States alone, there's over 50,000 open jobs that either on the analytics manager variation, there were actually additional jobs that were business analyst or some of the other titles. And so like the upside here, I think, is really great, especially if you're looking to get into tech. I think data analyst role is an incredible way to do that. Certainly, that was my story and that as well. And then finally, there are certifications here. We probably won't spend as much time on certs in this particular episode. We got some really cool stuff, including perhaps a ChatGPT demo or some understanding of that as well. But if you do want to check out certification, there is an excellent one from Microsoft, the Power BI Data Analyst Associate. Certainly encourage you to check out other cloud providers, other industry credentials, and things like that as well. I certainly recommend and welcome that when you're thinking about your career, it's good to have a range of credentials and a range of skills and things like that. So otherwise, lots of good stuff to check out there as well. All right, I think moving to the next question, I think that as a data analyst, I hear a lot is to kind of maybe demystify the different kinds of data-focused roles. And so, we have data analyst on one side, we've got a data architect perhaps on the other side, and then in between there, you got data scientist, data engineer, you've got sub-roles and things like that. So Ashley, from your perspective, like how do you think about the data role spectrum and what these different roles are?
Yeah. So I guess starting with the one I'm most familiar with, data analyst, I think it's probably somewhat similar to a business analyst. There's, kind of minute differences, but they're typically very close to the business. So they're working with stakeholders, they're gathering the requirements, and then they're translating it typically to a solution, but also working with a data engineer. So a data engineer is actually kind of building the pipeline, identifying the underlying data infrastructure that will support the data analyst. And kind of on the data science side, the way I think about it is data analysts will uncover the data and visualize the data that you have for your business. But if there's something that you're not able to get from the data directly, then you might want to employ a data scientist to help build a model. So they're doing more of the model building, I would say. I think that they get pretty into that, and probably do, at least in my opinion, less of the working with stakeholders. I'm sure there's, variations of that, but I think the data analyst is kind of someone who can work between the data science and the data engineering and more technical people, and then the business side. And then, as far as a data architect, I'm not as familiar with that, but I would say they are probably looking at everything across that the spectrum. So they're trying to understand, what's the data, what's the infrastructure that we need. So they need to understand what the data scientist needs for their job, what the data analyst needs, and what are all the way to the visualization platform that we're going to use. So that seems like a really cool role to me too. You're looking across everything, kind of almost more of a strategic role. That's kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, at least from my perspective, to build on your points there, I think these roles, the lines between them are blurring as we have larger and larger data sets. Data analysts are working more and more with data scientists, which might involve kind of unlocking the insight from a machine learning model or things like that. So while the data scientists might have a set of skills that are in Python libraries or machine learning model building and things like that, it feels like the data analyst has to kind of know enough about that stuff to be dangerous, to understand how to unlock the insight and kind of know where to go. Is it classification versus clustering, that kind of stuff and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and I'll say as a data analyst, you will be doing data engineering work to some degree. You need to understand that and where to get the data, what's going wrong upstream if it doesn't look right. So definitely there's a lot of overlap for sure.
Yeah, and I think that also brings up the point that our careers are not fixed. One of the things that we can do is to bridge across these different roles. So, you might be a data analyst now, but you could be a data engineer in the future. And not just for you, Ashley, but for any learner or any career seeker out there as well. You look at my career, for example, I don't do data analysis on a day-to-day basis, but I leverage the skills that I've learned as a data analyst, and that I hope allows me to work better with you and with other people to kind of understand insight and kind of empathize where you're coming from, and as you're troubleshooting tough things on the dashboard or things like that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so I mean, another thing about data analysis that I think is going to get really, really interesting here in the next few years. And obviously in the tech industry, it's a buzz with the words of OpenAI and ChatGPT and large scale AI models and things like that. And so, how do you think, data analysis and big data will change in the coming years, kind of as a result of some of these new models and new technologies that are coming out and such?
No, I'm super excited about it. I think that it's going to change things quite a bit. If I think about, I've heard this before that, 85% of data scientists' time is spent cleaning and prepping data. I think that's probably similar for analysts. And that doesn't mean that it's not important, because that's where you have to apply your domain expertise and to really understand the data and what it is that you're what's the question you're trying to answer? How will I manipulate the data to get there? But I think that there's definitely some kind of drudgery that has to happen. And that will be, I think that AI will make that part a little bit easier. I'm already seeing that, which is really cool. And also I think there's this, as a data analyst specifically, I do a lot of task switching. So one week I might be working primarily in Power BI, and then one week I might want to look up something I need to do something in R, and I haven't used R in 3 months. So I've been able to ask ChatGPT, for kind of essentially just a quick script prompt. And it's not that I wouldn't go there to learn R, but I can at least get kind of a refresher of, okay, that's how I get started. And so I've been using it that way. And I've also been, just kind of doing some really cool, just sort of simple tasks that you have to do as you're cleaning your data, using ChatGPT for that as well.
Yeah, totally. And we're going to get to a demo on that in a minute too. I think we were talking a little bit before the show that you've been experimenting with ChatGPT and getting some incredible outputs out of that and making your job a little easier. Before we get to that, I noticed a couple things in the chat window. Sebastian is asking data analysis versus business intelligence. Do you see any distinct differences there?
I don't know. That's a good question. Sometimes I kind of switch between saying like, I do BI or I do data analysis. I guess when I think of BI, I think of maybe a little bit more on the business analyst side, which is slightly less of the kind of the data and technical aspects. But I also think of BI tools, right? Like Power BI and essentially kind of surfacing up insights to end users. So I don't know. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little bit of a existential question in data analysis. It's a good one. Thank you, Sebastian, for that. I don't know if there's an industry definition on these. In my opinion, I think data is more universal than business, and so data can be data can be anything. It can be for a nonprofit organization. It could be your health telemetry on your watch or things like that. And so there's more of a universal element of analysis, even as consumers or people in our personal life. Business intelligence strikes me as kind of a very specific field or a set of practices, maybe some products like Power BI that are built around it. But if you look on LinkedIn, I think you can see there are job roles that are business intelligence. There are job roles that are data analyst. And I would encourage you all out there to search both of them and see which one is the better fit for you all as well. So I do notice a couple other things. Mohammed says the link doesn't work. Mohammed, if you could kind of clarify which link doesn't work, we'll try to get you the right link there and make sure that we're getting you to the right place and things like that as well. Allison is asking a great question too. Ashley, what are some resources that you use to keep your skills sharp as well?
Yeah. So it will really vary on what it is I'm trying to do at the time. If I'm trying to, learn a completely new skill, I might, do like an actual, course. We've got, Microsoft Learn, there's tons of other things, but a lot of times what I'm trying to do is to solve a specific problem and figure out the most efficient way to solve that problem. And so I will usually use, I'll just look on YouTube and try and find, the, something that's kind of similar to my problem. So it's a lot of just kind of being curious of what's out there. What are the new skills that you that you might want to learn? I always say curiosity is the most important attribute for a data analyst. And so really just getting out there and seeing what's out there. There is so much, it can be very daunting. But you'll find the things that work for you. You'll find the ways that you learn best using different platforms and methodologies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a couple other questions here that are kind of in that same spirit, which is, how do you get your foot in the door, or what are some of those initial steps to getting a job as a data analyst? I think there's no one way, but maybe share with us kind of some of the different ways you've seen people step into that role.
Yeah, I see a lot of people coming into this role. My coworkers like Justin, without necessarily a degree or background in it. I think every business, every company has data. So if you're curious enough to dive into it and start trying to dig insights out, that's going to be valuable. There's no way that's not going to be valuable for the company you're working for, the organization you're working for. Even if you're not at a company, there's tons of data online that you can work with. So I would say even if you're not in a data analytics role, just kind of digging into data and being more, being curious about what it is you might be able to learn from it. I think that's typically what I look for if I'm interviewing, for a data analyst. role.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think data in general is a universal. And every organization on the planet nowadays, I believe, has data, most that I know of, and things like that. And so I loved your word curious, right? I think being curious about data, when I started as an intern, I didn't really internalize what the role data plays in our world. That was kind of like this aha moment for me early in my career. And so it turns out like there are open data sets out on the interwebs that you can experiment with, and you can pull that into something like Excel or Power BI or other tools, and just kind of learn how to manipulate, how to think about data. I think getting some elements of practice and being able to share with an employer that you've been practicing, even on this open data set, if you can demonstrate your skills, I think that's really important. But everyone needs data, and I think data is kind of what creates our digital world and things like that. I think there's also kind of a dimension to this. That's very interesting, and that is that with data comes responsibility, and anywhere from privacy and how we retain data and things like that. Those are major industry super cycles that we've seen over the last 10, 20 years as data has grown tremendously. And so I think it's not just about experimenting with small data sets, but also have an opinion, I think, about the way data should be kept private, or where organizations should use data or perhaps not use data. I don't know, Ashley, are there resources or things that you've used as you've kind of grown your skills, I think, as a data analyst and such?
Around like just gaining skills, or around the
Yeah, I
private?
mean, I like beyond the realm of just practicing with data, like understanding privacy or understanding how we comply with different rules and things like that.
Definitely. I think that would be so helpful as a data analyst to understand what you can and can't do with data. Right now we're implementing different requirements that we have around data use for customers in the EU. And so I've had to kind of start to understand more of the data engineering side for that. So yeah, I think like really being cognizant of that, knowing that, anything that you work on is potentially going to have limitations on what you can share, where you can store it. Can something be in aggregate? Can we, is there personal information that we need to scrub from it? So that's a huge thing to think about for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So I see a couple comments. One is Mohammed is asking about Ashley and my LinkedIn. You can check it out. I've got it on the slide here. I'm at JustGar, and Ashley is at Ash Petro on the LinkedIn there if you want to follow us or engage socially there as well. And then Ricardo was asking about open data sets. So I'll make a quick comment on that. Like, you can check out many different data sets. They're available on GitHub. Some different vendors, including Microsoft, have libraries of open data sets. My caution, or something to be aware of there, is be sure to look at the licenses on those data. Oftentimes in GitHub, data is open and it's under like an MIT or Creative Commons license and things like that. But be sure just to check that out as you're exploring different data sets. There's no shortage of cool different things. Health data. Crime data is an interesting one. Climate data is one that I'm super passionate about because it's such a large data set and there are so many different variables. So definitely check that out in anything that you're passionate about or that. Well, Ashley, I want to make sure we have time for your demo. So you were telling me last week that you were experimenting with ChatGPT and how to make your own role even more productive and things like that. So do you want to share with us a little bit more about kind of what you were exploring and the scenario and use case here? And I'll set up a slide for you here. We did a slide, by the way, because ChatGPT sometimes does not return the query if it's particularly busy during the North America work week and things like that. So we made sure we wanted to make sure we had the output so that we would have the stream and not perhaps not have the output in live real time there. But anyway, share with us a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just a very small example of how I've been using ChatGPT, and I think it'll hopefully illustrate sort of some of the stuff that a data analyst will do. Um, so the Reactor program, they develop and deliver content across different technical and professional topics. And so if you registered for this event on the website, you might have seen this. And if you looked at the site, you can see all of the upcoming events. And over on the left, you can see there's a topic filter. So you could, identify like what's interesting to me. And the Reactor team wants to know, what topics are resonating with the audiences, and does that change by geographical, by geography, by country, and what content is contributing to people coming back. So what I wanted to study was which topics are associated with repeat registrations to events, and does that change by geography?
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating business question, and the context for all of you out there too is we want you all to come back, right? That's one of very honestly, that's one of our goals, is that if we're providing interesting, useful things to you in your career, you'll come back. And so this is one of our goals that we think about as a team is how we can create enough value that makes you want to come back and things like that. So awesome scenario.
Yeah. So what I did is I thought maybe I'll try and use ChatGPT. I had this data set has a list of countries. So it's a list of registrants, and it's their country, and it's the topic of the first event that they registered for. And then in the third column there, there's an indicator of whether or not they registered for a future event after this initial event. And so I'll clarify, this is dummy data, but this was the data set looked like. And for the analysis I wanted to do, I didn't want to view things by country. I actually wanted to up level it to region. And so in the past, when I've done that, I've had to go maybe find a file where I had a region to country mapping. I've gone online to see if there are good, data sets for it. So it would just take a little bit of time. And so what I did instead is I took that country column, I deduped it, and then I asked ChatGPT. And so the prompt is, give me the geographic regions of the following countries. And so I copied, I pasted all of those countries in, and wanted to see what it would spit out. And it actually worked. So it spit back the regions. This is probably a really good example of like what you don't want to necessarily copy and paste whatever is in ChatGPT without looking at it. So I noticed right away that like I didn't want to see the exact regions here. So like there's Northern Europe and Southern Europe. I wanted to roll that up. And so I thought, okay, let me see if it, will let me do something a little bit different. And so I asked it to give me the regions at a higher level. So like Western Europe and Eastern Europe would be just Europe. And it did that as well. So very cool. Just kind of spit out the country and then the region that was kind of more aligned to what the way I was going to present, or the way I was going to analyze it and then present the data.
So you were doing data transformation using just queries in English. You weren't writing SQL or writing R script or transforming the data in Excel or things like that.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting, right? Kind of reminds me of like a Marvel scenario with artificial intelligence of, someone asking their AI intelligence, well, can you transform this, or can you focus on this, right? Just conversationally speaking to computing technology and stuff. Very fascinating. Yeah,
it's so fun. And yeah, mainly doing it because it's fun, but it also is something that I do have to do, and it does take up time. And so then from there, I actually was like, okay, will it create this in a table? So I asked it to create a table with the country in the first column and then the region in the second, and it worked great. And then I copied and pasted that into Excel, and then was able to use the region to transform the data so that it was, I was able to see topics by region.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool. I think probably someday this will be integrated into Excel, so I wouldn't even have to go to ChatGPT, but you never know. But just kind of a good example of what a data analyst will have to do. and how this might make us, we're getting to the point where we can do the analysis faster now, which is really cool.
Yeah, and if you spend less time in the transformation process, then in your role, you can spend more time thinking about the right business decision, or communicating that, or interacting with people like myself or other people that are also focused on programming and things like that too. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Great. This is very fascinating. I gotta try this more often myself. I know some members of my team have been really experimenting with ChatGPT a lot across many different scenarios, including writing code. But data analysis, this is super interesting. Just a reminder, y'all out there, this data count is illustrative purpose only. We're not actually using Reactor data here, of course, but this is a very, as you said, Ashley, this is a real scenario that we really think about, like what are the most popular topics and things like that that we can appeal most to and such. So very cool, very cool. All right, Gloria is asking a really interesting question here. What are some common mistakes that beginner analysts make? Any tips on things to avoid?
Wow, that is yes, I feel like there are so many. So the one thing that I think a lot of beginners will do, and I have to make sure I don't do it as well, is taking a business question and immediately trying to go and solve for it without thinking through it and getting the context. So typically, if you are, you're a data analyst and a business stakeholder asks you a question, it might not always be might not be exactly what they're asking, or what they really are trying to get. And so it's kind of just like asking more why questions, getting down to like, what's the reason that they're asking, and getting more context, and understanding all of that will help you, because what you'll do if you don't do that is you'll go and you'll try and solve it, and then you'll come back to the stakeholder and you'll give them something and it won't be what they need. May not be what they need at all. It'll be like, oh, I need it, a little bit different, and there'll just be a lot of back and forth. And so I think that, just kind of going from requirement to let me figure out how to do this on my own, without that communication between us, with the stakeholder. I think that's probably the biggest mistake. And I'm trying to think what else.
I definitely agree. Like I was even thinking about reflecting on my own, our own interactions, Ashley, through business and things like that. Like, I think sometimes, stakeholders or people that are recipients of the data, it can be like our tendency to make prescriptive asks, right? Like, hey, Ashley, I need this dashboard like this, or I need this because I need to be able to learn things like that. But sometimes when people ask those questions, they may not have the full context that you do of the data set. And so I think you do have to kind of translate a little bit and say, well, when you said that, what are you really looking for? Is it more like this? Or, here are these 3 different options that we could do with the data. Oh, yeah, maybe option 2 is better than the prescriptive thing that I said or somebody else said in that type of example and such. And so I think that's a superpower of data analysts, is like knowing what people want, even if perhaps they don't fully know what they want in context of the data as well, And I think, and like to pivot that to like common mistakes is getting a stakeholder like exactly what they want too. Like it's not, that doesn't always work that way, I think, sometimes in data analysis.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and just generally, like, there are technical skills that you'll want to learn, but just focusing on that would be a mistake. There are, like, the communication skills are so important, not just with the stakeholder, but you're going to have to make friends with the data engineering team and other data, teams that you're sourcing the data from. So yeah, it's important to, to think about those communication skills and really, it's almost like relationship building and program management even. So it's not, I would say, focusing on just the technical skills would probably be a mistake as well.
Yeah. And I think what I can do to build on that too, Gloria, from your question, is I think probably the biggest mistake I've made as a data analyst in the past is assuming that data is clean and is ready and is brilliant. It's going to produce insight. Ashley, you made the comment earlier that like sometimes 80 to 90% of time that data engineers, data scientists spend is in cleaning and transforming the data and preparing it. And you said that, data analysts do some of that work as well. Yeah. So a common mistake is to assume that the data is clean when it in fact is not. And just to, anticipate, right? That sometimes data misleads you and you have to kind of go back and restate it or think about it differently and such too, right?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, no, that's a tricky one because our data rarely arrives in a way that is easily consumable, and that.
Yeah, I've never had that happen. Like, it's always messy.
There you go. She's never had it happen for all of you learners, our community out there. So maybe that's the lesson, right? Clean your data or work with people to help make that happen so that you can have better insight out of the output on that.
Yeah.
Well, Ricardo was also asking about core skills and things like that. And so like this Microsoft Learn, which is Microsoft form of free learning and training and things like that. We have an entire role dedicated to data analyst. And so you can check out the different modules that we have there. We have kind of introduction to data analysis. We have introduction to Power BI. And so I think my recommendation is, as Ashley was kind of saying earlier too, if you want to check out some technical skills, learn a little more about Power BI and data manipulation. If you want to think about more about the business side, then we've got data and context and principles of responsible AI and data use and things like that. So there are tons and tons of resources that are free for you there. And many of you asked the question, like, how do I start? Like, I think one of the most interesting things that Sarah last week in our cybersecurity engineering episode said is don't start with expensive stuff. Start with the free stuff. And then grow and expand and determine what you like in your career and what you don't. And then once you're at a point where maybe you want to pursue something that's an industry credential or things like that, that's available as well. And yes, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, we don't have vouchers for this particular episode, although I am talking about that as well. They're kind of difficult to distribute digitally, but I really would encourage you all, if you're interested in certification, Microsoft offers quite a bit of different discounts or other things, particularly if you're a student or otherwise. So do be sure to check out our certifications offerings there for potential offers and discounts and things like that. And like I say, the content is always free. The certifications, it's all about the cost is related to the exam that you take and the credential as well. So that's that. Allison is asking, what are some mistakes people make when interviewing for the analyst role? So that's a little bit of a variation on what mistakes to make there. But Ashley, you've interviewed people for data analysis before. What are some no-goes?
So I don't know if I would call them mistakes, but what I'm looking for when I'm interviewing people is, again, that level of curiosity. So if you're not asking questions, even if it's like a technical interview where, you're given a problem, I would expect that person to ask a lot of questions before they try to go and, solve the problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, you want to be sure that the person is going to have that kind of mindset of, wanting, of being curious, wanting to dig into things. And of course, someone that you could see yourself working with. So yeah, I wouldn't, there's the base level technical skills and understanding, but a lot of it is just, do they have the mindset that a data analyst should have, which is, are they curious? Are they able to communicate to different people with different levels of technical expertise? And almost looking for someone who has like an ability to translate across different roles and talk at different levels. So yeah, those are the things I look for. As far as mistakes, it would just be, not asking questions. I think that's super important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, stay curious. I like that. I like that theme as well. Well, we're about at time here. If you have a question for Ashley, please feel free to type it in the chat window. In the meantime, I'll kind of paraphrase something that Johnny asked, kind of related to ChatGPT and a scenario where ChatGPT did not return the best data for that particular scenario. This gets a little bit to that data hygiene or data cleaning question. So Ashley, what do you think about like when you were using ChatGPT, like what are some safeguards or what are some things we should, I think about before we use the output of ChatGPT and such?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I would not go there to learn something brand new. I, even, the other day I asked it to give me a Custo query language is one of the languages that we use at Microsoft, and very similar to SQL. And I asked it to kind of give me a script, and it wasn't what I needed at all. So, but I'm able to at least know that, even though I don't know what the right thing is, I know that didn't look right. And so there is definitely going to be a lot of, incorrect information that you're given. Like even with that example with the regions, when I tried that a few other times, like it was giving me, really weird regions that, I wasn't going to use. And that's why I had to up level it. So, you have to review what it is that you're getting. There's a long way to go as far as AI, but I think it's just a really good place to start, like, kind of start what it is you're doing. And it's just worth it because it's very cool, and getting familiar with it now is important because we are going to be using it. We're all going to be using it in the future.
Yeah. Context matters, right?
Yes.
You got to know enough to know what might be the right answer, or what is additive, perhaps that, what doesn't look right. So if it doesn't look right or doesn't feel right, I know it sounds a little bit more like an art, but trust your gut. If you're a data analyst out there, right? Data and context truly, truly matters. Well, Ryan's got a great question to, I think, end this stream on. Just a reminder too, for our live stream, for our live chat Q&A for the next episode, you can ask us even more questions on that too, and we'll be available. But Ryan asks, I'm interested in the breadth of data and projects a data analyst works with. In your role, are you regularly pivoting between data and projects that cover a wide range of topics?
Yeah, so I am lucky enough to be able to do that now. I work with the Reactor program, and that in itself is, it's a hybrid program where they've got in-person and online content that they're looking at. But I also support some other teams as well. So we have a student programs team, and I support them. So that's kind of a slightly different world, although related. So I do a lot of different things, and then even if you're not supporting different teams, you're as a data analyst, you're going to be doing a lot of different things. You're not going to just be doing data analysis. You're going to be doing program management. You're going to be doing product management even, really, because you're thinking about, like, I'm going to build all these visualizations and to, serve up the insights, but, how am I going to manage that in the long term? Like if I build a bunch of dashboards, I need to make sure that they work and that we have, essentially we know what we want to enhance them with over time and how we have to change with the business changing. So yeah, there's a lot of different data sets. And even within that, there's just a lot of different things you're doing as a data analyst, I think, in any data analyst role.
Yeah, it's such a universal role. Data in context is so important, and it is universal. So if you want some variety, if you want to have a new challenge with a different kind of data set, being a data analyst and analytics manager seems like a pretty awesome career in that. Awesome. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us today, sharing your wisdom and insight in it. I can say I really enjoy working with you, and I always feel like we're able to, make our community a little bit better with the insights that you provide and the team that you lead in that as well. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. And for all you out there for Launch Your Career, thanks for attending today. Be sure to share with us, check out the Cloud Skills Challenge, check out our LinkedIns and things like that. As well as we have a tech communities post where you can share your voice and get resources from us and things like that. So have a great day, and we will see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.